Hello, people. How are you today? You all, if you have a seat, we'll get started. My name is Kendall Hughes. I'm chairman of the Ashland Planning Board. This is Chris, who is from Plan New Hampshire. He's going to be facilitating the event today.
Yeah. All right, thanks. So, Chris Solomon, a board member with Plan New Hampshire, which you see some documents here. Also, architect, Sam Dooley Architects used to be in Ashland. We're now moved down to Holderness, but so local and have our own, personal interests on seeing what's going to happen with Ashland over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So with Plan New Hampshire, you guys did a charrette many years ago now. Looking ahead, as we're here today just to kind of present, like, what is that charrette program? And where does this take us? It's a wonderful program where we would come in with architects like myself, community and town planners, civil engineers, developers, lawyers who deal with zoning and regulations, kind of the full group that you would have. Say if you did have a private development company come in working, the teams that work on these larger projects is quite extensive. This Plan New Hampshire is a charitable program. We've assembled all of those parts and pieces that you would need to look at how do we look at development and plan out smart development and growth for communities in New Hampshire. That team comes to you guys, and what everybody here today is we want to kind of bring in all the stakeholders that are going to be part of that. Is you as community members, it's a collaborative, it ends up being about a 3-day event on site, and then there's a lot of work that goes into developing the report and kind of the visioning and the guidance to develop that after the fact. But what it isn't is they come in and tell you this is what you need to do. It's a collaborative session where we'll, over the course of 3 to 4 days, work with all of you and whoever else that, you guys are here today to tell us, who are those stakeholders, let's get those people involved. And over that 3 days, working on, okay, let's just study the town and get to know what's here. Hear from you guys, what's working, what's not, and then also, where are the ideas bringing us, and then vetting some of those. And actually, after the first, say, day and a half, kind of the full group steps away and starts to develop a lot of concepts and ideas. Say I was part of, and we first worked together up in Littleton, is the waterfront or the riverfront there. Actually developing ideas on how to redevelop Littleton's riverfront, which today, I don't know if you guys have been up there recently, but it's a vibrant community. That's all comes out of this design charrette program. Kind of laid the groundwork, and then we get to be part of these projects. We just did one at Castle in the Clouds, and they're actually doing work on redeveloping a lot of that facility. So it's amazing how we come in, we look at this. I mean, the sidewalk here in town, and that's actually built. So this stuff does become reality in the future. So I'd like to hear from you guys kind of what your thoughts would be on, are there other things that we're not thinking of that we should be thinking about? I mean, I can kind of talk to you about there's more that goes into that design charrette. I mean, we are bringing in a large group of people. There's 3 days of events, so having people that are vested into that, knowing that we're going to have the community support, we're going to have 20 or 30 people, local business owners, other community members, all the stakeholders we want at that meeting in different sections of the day. Areas that we want to explore. We're going to look into more of the mills or the downtown area or over by the 93 corridor. Like all those parts and pieces are going to be part of this bigger plan for the town. So, I mean, to start discussion, I mean, I can open up to you guys if you have any questions for me on what that will look like, or ideas of where you guys think we should be looking and pushing things in town. I don't know if anybody has any comments or.
I'll start the conversation. I think many of us have come to the realization that we have some serious economic problems in the town. We have infrastructure whose costs are becoming prohibitively expensive to repair and or maintain. We have a number of assets that the town owns and or, could utilize. We don't have an overall plan of how we turn the fortunes of the town around. If we keep going without doing anything, taxes will keep going up, the cost of our utilities will keep going up, and it will be prohibitively expensive for a lot of us to live here. To my sense, where we need a solution to that. We need something that begins to turn that cycle around. We're the poorest town in New Hampshire with, over 1,000 people. That's untenable. What kind of a plan fixes that?
That's a good question.
That's
what we need. Yeah.
To follow up on saying in our previous charrette, we had said that we wanted to take the mill area, develop that, make it into a commercial area, get some businesses in there, maybe some light industrial. We need to change the zoning ordinances to do that because right now that is zoned as industrial. All of that fits into that, and we need to move forward with this. We've identified it in the past. We now need to really start moving forward and build that momentum.
And I just say from my experience, I work for the Business and Economic Affairs Department. It's the Economic Development Department for the state. And my background is really municipal government. I've been a county administrator, town manager, town administrator. And really, that's really, what you're talking about is absolutely critical and a core of the community. And from my experience, it's developing an overall community economic development strategy. So it's community development and it's economic development. And just like, we're hearing, this is a piece of that. What this does is it really gets your community to start to think differently, to think with vision. Because I just had a conversation with your selectman here earlier. And, he was just describing some of the very difficult, just like you were, $30 million of infrastructure, potentially, that this is a big slug. But what you won't be able to do is fix that by doing the same thing. And, that's one of the things that we talked about too, was just you do the same thing, and if you just expect different results, you're not going to. So really, this is a design charrette, from my experience, is really one of the first steps to really get the community visioning and thinking beyond the issues and start to take manageable small steps towards that ultimate goal of change. It really help change the character of the community, and I don't mean like necessarily the infrastructure, but also just the character of the inner vision and attitude of what people can see as possible. And if you just look at the $30 million chunk, it's gonna weigh you down. But if you find manageable pieces to start revisioning what you can be, that's where this is at. Like the mill thing, I think is a great example. I know when Chris came to Littleton, for example, we did a design charrette there. I'll just tell real quick. I'll tell you this. So you have a charrette, and there's probably some things that have been accomplished, probably a lot that haven't in the old charrette. When I first started at Littleton, I started reading old files that were laying on shelves, and I stumbled on a design charrette. That's how I found out about Plan New Hampshire. I opened it up. I found one guy's name, and I called him. He's passed away now, and he was about to die at that point. But he came out and walked with me all the maps that we had in there, and he's telling me the vision that they went through, and I was just amazed. And then I look at the list, and nothing is done. And so I took that charrette, and within the first couple of years, I looked through the community. Like one of the things about this process is you start to establish committees or groups of interest who can actually help from the community, not just from the town, but the community push these things through. And within a couple of years, we had accomplished almost everything in that charrette. So then I got a hold of Plan New Hampshire, and we said, it's time for a new one. We want to do more. And if you look at, like Chris was talking about, the River District was, there was police were there all the time. There was dilapidated buildings, the electrical infrastructure, the sewer infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure, everything was absolutely terrible. If you go back on the backside of Littleton today, You're gonna see beautiful, street trees, 8-foot wide sidewalks. People have started reinvesting into the properties. A company recently, past 6 years, Chris designed it, I think a $5 million brewery extension. And from there, it just kept happening. You can see the community really stepped up and did all of that. And it really has to be community centered, and that's what this is. I will say too, once the second Charette came in, because the community was so, already there's so much energy in Littleton, so many good volunteers that are already there, but getting them coordinated and organized was, I think, one of the successes of the Charette program. We looked at, in our second Charette, the Hitchner manufacturing building. When my first day in Littleton, I got a phone call. The last person was laid off. They used to employ 500 people. So I got this huge complex completely vacant. By the time I left, there's a gentleman, I think he's up to $54 million investment in that facility. And the house, it's all housing and commercial. And it's only studio apartments. And up in Littleton, you would never think this, but it's $2,100 a month for a studio apartment in this building. So it brought in a whole new demographic to the community. And then down on the River District was the other piece of it. We created a community park, having community concerts, and just really changed the vibe of Littleton. We started closing off the streets that made sense, getting a full stage, having this huge events and parties that brought people from all the surrounding communities into town. So anyways, I think these Charettes, they're inspirational, they're visionary, and from my experience, they really bring the community together in a new way. So Chris has been instrumental in my experience with this, so just wanted to say that.
This isn't just like a planning guide, it becomes real. And Littleton was, it puts the river over here to shame, and that was pretty rough. Into where it is today. It's amazing what it's turned into, so.
One comment, I read through the master plan, and there was expectation that the population in Ashland would grow over the next 10 years. Just so everybody knows, we used to have more than 2,000 people. We have 1900s at which our population is shrinking, but it's expanding in the communities around us. One of the things that we talk about, it's a little bit in there, is this morning we had our second tour of one of the mill buildings that the town owns that either needs to be raised, done something with it, or it's going to be, we're hoping it's not too late. But then the whole area around it, some of it is privately owned, some whatever, but helping us develop a vision, because there's a lot of acreage there. There's a river that runs right through it. Some of it is private. There is some commercial operations going down there. A lot of it is vacant. Some of it, the town might be owning more of it soon. So a vision of this spot that it's adjacent to downtown. We have a downtown, just most of the stores are empty, but we actually have a physical downtown.
Okay.
And it's adjacent to that. So developing a vision of what needs to go, some of it needs to go because it's falling down, what could stay, and helping us move that. In the concept of how much this costs can be overwhelming, but if you get the right developer, whatever, they know where all the money is. There's a lot of different programs that could, am I making sense? But that's a big piece.
Yeah, and one piece of this is it's more than just that one piece, because that, in terms of the finances, it's having that comprehensive plan. Because we may see, okay, you need 10% growth of the population, or we're shrinking, we need more people to move in. What does that involve? Okay, we want housing in here, we want to bring it in. But there's so many more pieces to that. It's the business relationship to that. It's the services. It's the mill building downtown. So looking at this holistically, say in Littleton, we looked at that quarter, all the way up to the Hitchner building, which was housing, all the way down through Main Street to kind of the end of it, which is where Schilling's Brewery now is. Those things relate, and that's where having one person come in and to see a development project, like, we want somebody to come in and do a new housing project here. It's a bubble, and you're never going to fix that $30 million other problem.
Right.
unless you have the vision for the whole thing.
Right, which is where we are right now. We've got a development that wants to come in and it's gonna exasperate the situation we're in. Because we need this other. And how do we get there?
Is that development, is it actually a good thing? If you look at this holistically, maybe it's not, who knows? I don't want to get into those types of things. But like,
But if we just do that, it's not a good thing.
yeah, if we look at each one of these little things, you're never going to achieve it because it's such a big
Right.
one lift to try to get that resolved. Also, it's, for the town to own downtown real estate on a river and to develop that, I mean, the town's just never going to have the ability to do that. So this is looking at this in terms of giving a guide and then knowing that, okay, we want to talk with these people for this project. Or say that history building, we know that wanted to be a residential development to kind of support the growth in the business of this downtown quarter. Without that, you're looking at these things as individual bubbles. So that's where this comes in, and having commercial real estate agents who are doing big development projects, to engineers, to like land planners that design cities, to the architects and the financiers of these projects, all working together, is what this program looks to do, to give you guys kind of that roadmap. And then they're bite-sized projects. You break it down from there, and you can say, okay, we need to go talk to this developer. We need to have a warrant article to rezone this, and we can make those things happen. And then, okay, it is appealing to a developer to come in and do some projects there. Or we want to have a riverfront walk there and have that be part of the community. So anytime we rezone that needs to be part of it, and that's defined in the planning of that, so we don't miss out on bigger opportunities down the road.
So, I am one of the mill owners down in the end of Winter Street. My husband and I have been pouring our heart and soul in that building for 16 years. What really would be helpful is if there was support and help from the town, an occasional tax break in order to do the next big thing, or help finding some grant money to help reface the building, or helping to bring all the small businesses, a couple of them are represented here right now, into some kind of collaborative where we could be working together. Most of the business owners, I will speak for myself 100%, but we're kind of islands unto ourselves, because when we go to the town or when we ask for help, or I have been part of meetings like this for 16 years, like I've hosted them in our building when we were just starting out, and eventually, honestly, I've just kind of backed off and just pursued my business. Our business, we have over 150 kids coming in there from all over the Lakes region, all the way from Dorchester, Bristol, Meredith, all over the place coming into town. All of those people, when their kids are at dance class, they run up and they buy a pizza. They grab Chinese food. They run to the store, they get gas. They're putting money into our community. And without some more support, this is a labor of love. We are not making money down there. Like the building, and I think many of you have been in there, we have, we've created a really great space, but we're literally alone. And I think as a community, if you really want to see what some of the things that you talked about, the character of a community, it's not business welcoming. It's not a fun place to come and start a business. We have a coffee shop that we put down there. She is now out of business, and she's now moving out of our mill building, yoga studio and everything. It's just a really hard place to run a business within Ashland. Like, we have all of our support, or most of our support, from outside, but the amount of people that we bring into this community every week, putting money in here, would be really beneficial. But we just need a little more openness from the town and the powers that be to support the local businesses.
I mean, Ashland is pretty unique. You've got this lakefront community on one end, and a public beach and campground and this wonderful kind of lake environment. And then you come to the complete other side of the thing, and you've got the main corridor for the entire state running right through the middle of it. So and then you've got this community that the old main road through town no longer is the main road, and it completely changed the shape of the town. So like there's these three nodes that are completely disconnected from each other now. So yeah, sense of community, how everybody lives and reacts in this town, other people coming in. It's a lot of opportunity, it's just we need to weave all that together. So that's what we would look to do for this.
Bob Colonel, one of the things about the town is we have to put our needs before our wants. We have needs right now that are just, especially in infrastructure. We need a new police station, otherwise the insurance company's not gonna insure us any longer. Things like that, and that's expensive. The town only has one resource, and that's taxes. So you can only raise taxes so much. You need to bring in some sort of economic development in order to bring money into the town, like the lady was talking about. We had an opportunity to do that with a trash to energy plant, would have brought in at least 50, 60 jobs. That would have been able to bring revenue into the town and allow us to build things like a police station. We need a new town hall. Town hall is in very bad shape. So those are the things we have to think about. Those are the things that are in crisis mode right now. All these wonderful things you want to do, parks and all that, that'll cost money. Where's it going to come from? So you have to do your needs before your wants.
When I talk to people in town, I hear that we need to increase the commercial tax base. And I see, aside from the mill, I can probably come up with, 5 commercial properties in town that are either vacant and not used at all or underutilized. And I'd like to see some type of component to this plan that includes a partnership between the town and some of the property owners to really help market these properties so that we can get them up to their full potential, so that it's going to help both the property owner, but it's also going to help the town because it's going to increase our commercial tax base.
Yeah, and there's a lot of infrastructure here that is definitely not being utilized, so.
Exactly.
Hi, my name is Mike Soriani. So my history is I've been visiting this town since '72. I'm currently a permanent resident here, one and only resident here. In other words, I'm not a snowbird, nothing. I've been a property owner since 2006, and I've been living here for quite some time now. The reason I came here is that we have all of our committees and here, as well as some other consultants, perhaps, in what we should be doing. One of the things I wanted to present here is another way of increasing or supporting our infrastructure growth in what we need. And the only thing I wanted to state here today is, as I look at another town, actually the Holderness School, that has put in a huge solar panel grid there to support themselves, I would hope that our selectmen, our planning board, our zoning folks, as they look at some projects that are being proposed, look at utilizing the 33 acres that we have here for one project to be utilized as a solar grid, panel grid, to give us electricity. We used to have using the river to provide our electricity, and that's kind of gone by the wayside over time. But it's green energy. I'm sure the state would love us to be able to support the co-ops, etc. But consider changes to make us do some things like a private school right down the road has done, and it's an awesome thing to utilize to help our tax base. I see it since '72 going, as Bob has indicated, you know. And it's for people to remain living here. You know, we've got to kind of get that under control. And I see that as an addition, not only for us, to, you know, again, bring our own power generation in town in some way. That's green, you know. But anyway, it also helps us get the revenue that we need to do some other things. So I just wanted to make that statement.
So that would all be part of this study. It's really looking at, from the financial end of things, is, you know, power in town. How much is that? Is there going to be infrastructure that's going to want to come in and be here because of that? I mean, you've got the corridor right here, so shipping and trucking is excellent in the location. So like, who else from the town, from the community, should be at that charrette? And that's what I put out to you guys, is thinking about developing that list, developing the kind of, if we break out into a breakout session and spend 2 hours talking about these things, who else from the community needs to be at these events, who can be influential on developing this and providing a clear vision for that? And then also stakeholders that may actually want to be part of that and do that. Is it for the elementary school, who the facilities director there? I mean, all these parts and pieces within the town need to come together to talk about that. If not, it's individual one-off things.
Well, part of this also, I think one of the issues with bringing businesses in is the issue of parking. So is that another factor that we would include, things that would entice? Because we do have water and sewer, we have the highway, so there's a lot of things in our benefit, but, so that would be part of it as well, to bring in areas where we can get parking.
Definitely, I mean, with any development in a downtown area, you've got to be thinking about parking, because people need to, we're a driving community. And I mean, in some of these areas, we may think about parking so much in terms of, we push that parking out. That's a different situation than here. Like in a downtown Concord, looking at how that kind of revitalized the downtown there is really, it was traffic flow and parking was all that was really touched there. And redoing the sidewalks, the businesses did their own development. The town wasn't going in and refreshing those businesses. And now you look at downtown Concord, it's this vibrant downtown community that people want to go and be in. So that's a huge part of this. I mean, even down to DOT has this plan of putting in a roundabout down at the corner as you head off towards Holderness. Like, what's that going to do to the traffic flow? Is it going to improve things, slow stuff down so you can actually develop it downtown? All those things we're going to want to be talking about and having be part of this.
And when you're a poor town, the definition of that is you have no money. People are going to allude into.
Yeah.
And I think that there isn't a shortage of ideas and people who want to come together and do things. What there is a shortage of is money. Just a quick example, you talked about our beach, which is, has a fabulous potential. We'd like to improve that a little bit. Now, that's not a big project, but we still don't have the money for it. So, I mean, every time we look in a certain direction, it's the money that stops us. The mill building that everybody's talking about, a bunch of us were down there this morning because we're trying to understand why it's deteriorating so rapidly. We found there's a flat roof with a drain. We found that the drain pipe had become disconnected. An entire flat roof, 100 by 150 by 50, was draining down this 5-inch hole and just pouring through the bottom of the 3 stories of the mill, all because the pipe was sitting on the floor and had become unattached. Okay? That, it sounds absurd. It's $200 repair and we're looking at $1 million worth of damage from that. Only because the town didn't really have the resources to get involved, take a look at that, and make sure that simple fixes like that could be applied. And that's a story we see everywhere. We have a $1.2 million water pipe repair project 6 years ago. That was the quote. Well, we didn't do it because we didn't have the money. The residents turned it down. That same project today is $6.4 million. Okay? We just keep digging the hole deeper, but it comes down. It's not everybody has the right intentions, and we're always talking about it and trying to do the right thing. But unless we find some starter source of money that can at least provide the spark, to get some of these projects, started and off the ground, we're just going around in circles. I mean, we need some help.
I just want to say something to that. So, I think that, that is something that you'll hear in a lot of communities, but I think like the pipe story is a great analogy of the community itself, right? So if you don't get out there and at least get a plan to figure out what's wrong and find a way to fix it incrementally, then you're just gonna keep doing the same thing. You're gonna throw, it's not the seed money you need right now. I think it's the seed, this is my opinion, and I'll say my professional opinion as a manager myself. You need the vision. You need the overall vision, because if you just go fix the one pipe, there's all these other issues. You gotta prioritize, and then once you get the vision, then you go find the money and tweak your plans and adjust them. So, if you do the analysis of your community with the community input, because just like you've got that experience with the pipe, somebody else has got experience with the, like Mr. Letourneau with working on a large incinerator plant, or somebody else, has the experience of the solar. But until you get everybody in the room, the school, all these different places into the room and start to look at that broader picture, and then think of, here's where we need to be, and here's where we are. What are the steps in between? Because otherwise you're just chasing something, and you've been doing that for years. And so if you do the same thing over and over, you can't do it.
But the problem is we need some hope.
Yeah, getting vision.
And it was, you could look at this pipe in my example and say, okay, well, that's just absolutely flat. But I think if you see it more clearly, you realize that perhaps nobody wanted to go into that building because everybody knew there'd be no money. If we saw something, that needed to be fixed, the floor needed to be fixed, the roof, that there was no money for that. So that it kind of dampens the enthusiasm in the town to get involved in projects like that, because you quickly learn that they're not going to go anywhere until you find that helping, financing that can get you started. So, I think if we all felt that, we could find that money and get this project started, we'd have a lot more energy to define those projects and figure out where we need to go.
I think it's the opposite. I think you can't get anybody to buy into helping you until you've got a vision to sell. So I'm not gonna invest in a company that says I can't do anything. I can't even afford to buy tires for my Bobcat. Why would I invest in that company? But if the company said, hey, my Bobcat's falling apart, but I'm going after this many contracts, and I'm gonna grow this rate, but this, they don't have the money, they just got the vision. You're investing in that. And I think, for example, you're talking about, you don't have enough tax base. We had a business leader sitting over here saying that the town seems not business friendly. So even that as a component of this discussion is like, well, why? What components of her interaction with this community makes her feel not business friendly? And they try to figure it out and have teams of people who start to focus on all these different issues. But you can't find resolution until you look at the entire thing and try to prioritize what the vision is.
We need to look at the whole thing. We need to find something that we can all agree on to do, and then we need to start building on those successes. That was exactly what was said in the last charrette, was that we have broad vision, no consensus. We need to build and move forward. And Ashland has a long history of just kicking the can down the road. And it's the exact quote out of the last charrette.
But say, like the Littleton charrette, and one of those things we came out with was the park in downtown, across the river from Shillings. And what does that do there? We need some bathrooms, and then we want to be doing these events there. I mean, that created such a sense of community, and every Sunday it's a vibrant place, and all those businesses are flourishing along downtown because of that one little idea. It didn't cost any money to the town. And one thing I would say is, I mean, this charrette is not going to come in and say, oh, we found $100 million worth of grant money. That's not what this is for. It's the vision of how do we incentivize people to come in. They're going to want to invest in this town, and that's what's going to solve your problems. Without that, you're never going to be able to keep up.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Um,
I'll let the lady go first.
Okay. When we start working in plans, and you have everybody who wants to be involved in the community, which you need because people need to be invested in this plan. But going back to the mill that's near downtown and stuff, it is such a vast thing. So we should do this, but are we going to have, or could we somehow have access to developers who have vision and say, oh, we could do that? Because if you go to like Newmarket or something and what they did there, it's just amazing. But there was somebody had vision to do these things, and so that we have the space, we have the river that goes through. Ashland has so much going for it with its proximity to the lakes, the mountains, the university, even Runny Rocks, whatever. We just get amazing stuff here, but we've got this SOAR in the middle of town, which helps to suck money out of the town because it's producing nothing. And so somebody to help us we've got the space with some buildings that gotta go down, and this is a big portion of the town, so it's just not nitpicking. Looking at the mill area is a huge piece of this. So I guess my question is, are there professional people available who can come in and help, not design it, but just put out the kinds of ideas, the vision that we may not even think of because we're just looking at this hole in the ground as a SOAR kind of thing. Would that be available?
Yes, that's what we, at the end of this, so.
At the end or at the beginning?
Well, we're not just gonna come in and say, we think you
Oh,
guys
no,
should do
no,
this.
you're right, but as part of the process.
Yes, so at the end of Charette, so.
3 days, at the end of 3 days.
Yeah, so the beginning is getting to understand the town, is talking with all the local business owners, residents, the stakeholders in town, and really starting to understand what are the needs, and what are the opportunities, and what is here that we can work with. And actually, we're gonna get out and walk through the mills and walk through downtown and go to all these places and see it, understand it. Then it's breaking out and discussion kind of in more in-depth, the financial side of things, the building side of things, the infrastructure, all those parts and pieces that really make a community and keep it running. And then we'll develop some concepts. So we'll step away, and actually at the end of the day, you guys go home, they kind of work through the night and develop some concepts. The next day we'll meet with everybody again, talk through those ideas and start to have a design discussion. I mean, we do this in architecture all the time. We develop concepts, we'll meet with our clients. It could be Schilling's Brewery up in Littleton, when we met with, developing that concept for downtown. It's a bubble diagram. But they can start to understand, how does this relate to the town, the community. Go back, refine that further, and then there's on the final day, a presentation and discussion of, these are kind of the parts and pieces that we see in terms of the town, and here's the designs that we think could work. Granted, we're not gonna design, we may say, okay, we want a boutique hotel on the river downtown. We're not gonna design that, but it's gonna be, this is a great area in relationship to these other 5 projects where you can then target that, and there'll be real estate agents that are part of that discussion. They're gonna know, okay, we should go talk to those people. And now you can go and have that conversation, or we know that we need to rezone this one space to accommodate those things. You can get all that in place, and then the private money and the development will come in. Because it's not the role of the town to do that private development, or to have the money to do that.
Did Franklin do this? Because Franklin's working on reinventing themselves. Did they do this process?
Yes, in fact, I'm working with them right now too. We just finished doing, I think it was, Stevens Mill project, that was, I think it was around $30 million probably. If you go back along the back river there, part of the long
where
process,
Vulgar is, and
it starts with this. So, Franklin was another community, limited means, high tax rate. But they started doing the visioning. Now, if you look at what Stevens Mill is, it's been converted into a commercial, really nice apartments, and some of the old dilapidated buildings that were, in danger. To kids or anybody. Yeah, we've helped take those down.
So they started with this.
They started with this process, and they didn't, have money. But once you created the vision, the money came. So the Stevens Mill project, private development, private money, federal money, state money.
Hilton did the same. Campton's looking at it actually.
just want to touch back again on the mill building downtown, because that's definitely when the town was vibrant, that mill was vibrant, and the town was vibrant with it. In order to get business to invest revenue or resources into the town, you have to have two things. You need to have low energy costs and low taxes. That attracts the business. The fellow who owns the mill building down there is not cooperative with the town. Everybody here that served on the board of selectmen or any other board in this town understands what's going on down there. How do we get that owner to come to the table and work with us?
We invited you to the Charette. You should be here for that.
You notice to be laughing.
Let me hold my breath.
Because these folks have all experienced what we've gone through with the owner of that particular piece. So that piece of property is going to be the keystone downtown if it doesn't fall apart first. But no maintenance going on, and he's rented out a big portion of it to a guy who chops cars up. I mean, it's gotta go, you know, that building would be a key to bringing in businesses, because every town that rejuvenated their community that had mill buildings have done it very successful by bringing in people who make investment to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the mills are a key piece to this, but there's a whole bunch of this town too. That you've got 93 corridor, you've got this whole strip here. So we're gonna look at this holistically. I mean, we also need to be realistic, knowing that
I don't disagree.
they're never selling that, that's never gonna change. Well, then putting all of our plans into developing that and our efforts, maybe that's not a viable plan. Those are all things that we wanna have as part of this charrette.
I think one of the important things we look at also is the zoning. Right now, we have 17 businesses operating on Route 3 in the residential areas. We need to make that so they can legally operate there.
The one on Thompson Street too.
You mentioned one of the things that concerns me is traffic flow in town. And one of the good things about town is our proximity to 93 and the lake. So people drive right through the town. Millions of dollars drive right through the town getting to Squam, and they don't stop. And, you know, lack of businesses, but traffic flow is a big thing. You mentioned a roundabout. I don't know if that's a current plan or if that's based off the old Charette.
Well, I know the DOT has plans for redoing that corner down there. And that's been, Department of Transportation has plans for redoing the corner. They've been talking about this for years, and there's always something more pressing. So, but we're gonna see that we need to slow traffic that coming through downtown, like in Concord. They changed all that.
I mean, that's one of the big things. That intersection, all the roads that converge there, and then also, I know the town has done a great job with the crosswalks and evening those out and things, but the speed at which traffic flows in that section is incredible and doesn't give pedestrians a good chance of crossing the street. So that's a huge thing that we could look at too.
I mean, this charrette may come out the mills are great, but that's not really where we're going to be really redeveloping the town. Or there's all these other great ideas for the actual kind of downtown, today's downtown versus downtown before 93 arrived. What is that doing to the town? And how is traffic flow coming through town? There's going to be engineers that's what they do, is traffic studies and knowing all this stuff as part of this charrette. So it's that full team of kind of experts in the field.
Chris, can I just follow up? Go ahead. I just wanted to ask about the further meetings beyond this, because I actually have to get going soon, and what the plan is for future meetings and the actual charrette, the 3-day thing.
Yeah, so the next would be is actually working with the town to submit the application for that. And it's not something we would do next month, but because there's a few towns that are looking for this as well that have already signed up. So in the next, say, 6 months or so, would be actually scheduling that. There's an application fee to raise money for that. Hosting this event is typically we'll ask local business owners to help host that and be part of that event. because we are bringing in like 15 professionals into the town for 3 days, so accommodating that, and then getting it scheduled, and we would know well in advance, and then getting the right people at this, because this is not going to be productive if people aren't attending it. This is for the town of Ashland, it's not for any other town.
Yeah.
And the plan is not to come in and invent the ideas. You guys have all the ideas, it's just putting that together in a viable plan.
Chris, how long did it take from the time you started at Littleton to where it is now? How many years was that?
There's been 2 rounds of charrettes up there. There's kind of, say, the western side of the river and then the eastern. So it's about 10 years in between each one, I think.
Yeah, and like I was saying before, I think a lot of the things in the charrette kind of just got put on a shelf. But from the time that I found that and got to the second, it's a period of a total of, let's say, 6 years. There's still a few more things to happen, but if the community is excited and motivated, that really has to be community driven with, the town a partner in that, in order to, otherwise it just becomes a plan on the shelf. But yeah, it can happen pretty quickly. And once the money is a conversation, this plan helps with all the different groups to start developing funding stacks of how you're going to do something like a sewer, just for an example. Your sewer infrastructure, you can fund that through USDA grants, Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund grants and loans, and other types of assistance that's out there. But you really have to have the start, to really vision it, and the community to be supportive and excited about it.
Do we have an overall plan of the town boundary? So when we look at it, and it'll probably be really small scale, we can just identify zones.
Yeah.
That type of.
There's definitely plenty of that stuff around.
There you go. This is the current zoning map for the town of Ashland, in its boundaries.
Cool. That's good. Then we get to actually blow it up, actually do an overlay on that and zone it to what happens and all that.
Yeah, and we can get different types of maps and stuff from Lakes Region Planning Commission. That shows different sections and everything.
Great.
Well, that'll be posted on the website.
Actually, it is already on the
Is
website,
there,
the master plan. To follow up on your thing, the former charrette identified that as an issue. There's several plans in it, they need to be updated. Then we need to get the support of the legislature and everything to get those done. But it should be a priority personally.
About that too, we need to make sure to involve the state DOT or the state, have someone from the state here, because without that, we can't do anything, because it's a state road, and that's.
I'm not sure.
Yes, so.
And coming out of this week, we'll know that, okay, we need to go down to the district, sit down with them, have a meeting and plan it out.
Yeah.
We're doing that, me personally, in downtown Holderness. We know that there's a sidewalk, it stops for the last, say, 300 feet before downtown. We're developing a plan for that. We're gonna go sit down with DOT, because we really want to not have people get run over in downtown. That sidewalk is used all the time, but it doesn't work because it's not finished. So we'll know, okay, community members need to go down and sit down with the state and start working on that.
I don't even know if this is feasible, but, I've been coming up here, I live here now, and we've had a home here for years, but when I was younger, the town was so quaint. It was so much fun to walk through town and go into the little unique shops, and you were attracted to it. And you could walk to it and you could bike to it, but the roads weren't that busy. Is there any way of making the town more bike-friendly and walk-friendly in this town? Now, I know when I go on vacation, I'm always looking for the bike trail. Mm-hmm. And that's where we want to bring our grandkids, and it's fun. You go to Chelmsford and you go anywhere else. Well, my kids just happen to live in Mass. And we're always getting on a bike trail, and there's always stores along the way or a place to dine, and it's bicycle friendly. They have bicycle racks. So we've got the college, we've got all the kids. Wouldn't it be nice if they could safely, I don't want to ride on a bike from Plymouth to here, but wouldn't it be nice if we could somehow, between towns, attract people to come in by bike and have bicycle routes. Even if we rented bikes at each end, you know, in Boston, you can actually pick up a bike and then return it to the next town or whatever. I'm not saying we should do that, but just be more bike friendly.
We keep referencing Littleton, that was part of the bookend of the town, was that walking and biking and rail trail, working with the rail trails to finish that off, to get to that development, so that is a corridor for
But
downtown.
we actually use the rail in this section, so we don't have that.
We do that.
Right, so we looked at that though, and there were areas where we were looking at just using the right of way, because the rail right of way in some cases is actually pretty large. And, you know, one of the aspects of the plan was trying to figure out, there's not just the rail trail, what trails already exist throughout the community. And once we created a community-wide trail map, you could see, oh wow, there's actually recreation here, and you could connect, like you're describing, and you can start to figure out where the connections are.
And there were spots that we had to be careful, because you had to give the right of way to the traffic had to give the right of way to you, basically, but you had to be careful. So, but it's just so much fun, and it would be a great attraction, especially if
That's
we
part
have,
of, I don't think it's not been part of any of these conversations.
like snowmobile trails. You know, they'll actually snowmobile, and if they had a place to park, then they
We
could
do.
come here and dine, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's it, yeah.
We
So
do
now,
snowmobile.
exactly, so why can't we do that with bicycles for the summertime?
Because then the railroad's running.
Yeah, but we'll still use the right of way type
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, you might be able
Something
to
look
Just
at.
if they're wide enough,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, you just
Something to
use the
look at.
right away.
Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
I just think it would be amazing, especially because it's gonna draw in the young people.
Littleton, I mean, there were these great little parks that were completely underutilized and not really adding to the community. And we were able to look at that. It's amazing what you gotta like take yourself out, look at the plan, and you can start to connect all these. And now they're all used because you can go on a walk and go to all these places. And now the neighborhoods, people wanna live there because they have the walking trails and such. So now the houses are being used, people are working in the businesses, so it all goes together as part of that conversation.
Two comments. Number one, as far as snowmobile trails, whatever trails may be around, if you think about snowmobile trails, that the state has a corridor, say for that, guess what? It's on private property. You're on private property, because there's a lot of those snowmobile trails that the property owner says, I'm done.
Yeah,
I don't want anybody.
because kids are.
Well, whatever is happening. So you get private property owners that are saying, no more. Okay, so it's a problem, because those areas still need to be maintained. By who? By who?
By the snowmobile clubs.
Well,
Yeah,
they do that
Yeah.
because, and they do it as a PR thing, so that they have access. to
Right,
it.
and we have events for the landowners that we
Right,
appreciate them.
exactly.
And they have crews.
So,
that
but
go out and
it
pick up
comes
trash.
in, it comes, but it also disappears.
Right, but
So-
to her point, if it was more about biking and walking, you could
Right.
still have private citizens that would volunteer to help maintain those.
Maybe, and maybe
Well-
we wouldn't have to,
Yeah.
but it's something to look into.
Right,
But there's,
So-
There's always
Anyway.
negative to everything and positive, and we should look at both.
right. I just wanted to bring up that point, you know, so be
And it-
careful.
We should look at both.
And broader, like on just like transportation, that sort of thing, like it is a part of the plan. And, you know, one of the things to know, and I'm sure, you know, you guys know about it, but there's a 10-year transportation plan. So like if the idea was, hey, we want to connect Plymouth to Ashland, so it's all like off-road or a wide bike lane, well, you can work with the DOT and the Regional Planning Commission. And when they have a schedule to redo the road, then you can take that that could be at least brought up and taken into consideration. Right.
So,
And even connect to Holderness, because that's all lake. I want to do that. I mean, I think even Holderness would like that, because
yeah,
it's just,
So, and the other thing I really wanted to first bring up here is, there's a lot of examples on how cities, towns have revitalized themselves. Let's go out of state. You know, I live close to Lawrence, Mass, Haverhill, Mass, okay? And what had been done with those mill areas to bring revenue back, I mean, those things were a disaster, you know, as far as what was going on. So, but if we look at the problems that those cities or towns were trying to do and how they overcame those hiccups or, problems, hopefully, the knowledge gained from what did they do to overcome things. We're talking about enlisting mill owners here that are, I don't want to be bothered with this stuff, right? Whatever. All right, they're looking for free money coming in for them to do something. You got to engage the people. You got to get a real collaborative, idea. And I hope that's, as you go forward here, you get the people here. Get the people here
That's
that are
all
part of
your
it.
job.
Yeah,
That's why
no,
we're
I
today.
understand.
You guys gotta bring the.
But you have more of the experiences of what has happened in Littleton, or what's going on in Franklin right now. So you guys need to come in and say, this is how they overcame that situation for you here in Ashland,
And that's what this group is they're all experts we've studied all those, or it's the actual people who have worked on those projects are coming in here to try to create a great community for New Hampshire.
I promised myself I wasn't going to say anything. But anyway, as usual, the problem here is we have a tax-based problem. Tax base was just increased, it was double the last tax evaluation period. That has done nothing to raise money, because people only have so much money to begin with. It's very easy to sit here, oh, we're going to spend 30 million over here, 30 million over here. The problem is there's not enough land available in this town to even think about having enough money on a tax base to take care of all these problems. It's just not there, and I think we keep missing that. There's only so much land available in this town. Rezoning it isn't going to amount to anything, my opinion. It's not. The land is going to be available for what it is or what it's been. You're not going to increase it enough to compensate what is needed for infrastructure work. And once again, I will say this, $30 million. We all know this. We studied this more than once before. It's only 30 million. Taxpayers and ratepayers cannot come up with that kind of money. You need a project. How many $30 million projects are you going to try to put out there to create $30 million worth of revenue? You can't do it. It's not available.
You only have an income of $4 million a year.
Well, that's this is not meant to address that.
I know that, but this is part of the problem that we're trying to solve here. And we keep kind of skirting around it all the time. Here again, my opinion.
If I could just say something like, and I hear exactly what you're saying, but from my experience, like right now, what I do, I work for the Business Economic Affairs Department, and I specialize just in housing and community infrastructure development. So I've been shocked from working in small towns and understanding like you've got this much land mass, but when you start thinking and creating vision of like, hey, what's the highest best use of every square foot of this place? After this stuff started happening in Littleton, I had developers showing up. I had one show up. He looked at a half acre. He had looked at a half acre, and he was telling me about a $23 million project on a half acre. Now, if you think about the impact of something like that on the tax base, it's pretty significant. So, like even now, like we just finished working with a housing project, half acre, with a full parking lot, 24 units in these beautiful buildings on a half acre. So even with land limitations, I think that's something you definitely got to take into consideration. And while this doesn't fix it, it definitely, when you start developing a plan and a vision, otherwise that 30 million bucks, you only got 4 million of income, you're not doing anything. You're just going to keep trying to tackle that $30 million project with what you got. You got to do something different, right? I mean, that's
Definition of
If I may ask you, you're talking about the $23 million project on a very small acreage, what did that $23 million project generate in income for taxes?
Well, so what you would do is you take the formula, you take the entire valuation of the town, you take the entire expenses, and then deduct the revenues, and then you divide up that value, you add that value to it, and you can see what it is. So I think what you're saying is like, yeah, you need more of it, but if you don't, you need a certain amount to actually, be able to wash it. I think if your income, I don't know what your budget is, but if you have a $4 million budget, then a little project like that has a lot more of an impact than, say, Littleton that's got a $30 million budget, right? So the valuation of Littleton at the time, we were trying to get to $1 billion total valuation. I think we were at like 500 when I got there, and we kept pushing through industrial and commercial and all that. But I'm just saying, like, in a smaller pond, a large project has a bigger impact on the tax rate than it would in a
Here again, I'll just say you're talking about Littleton, this is Ashland, New Hampshire.
You can still do it. There's
I think
lots
we-
of things we can do.
I think we can do it.
We can.
We can do
We're
it.
just working on the budget down in all, it's one project. The entire tax increase for the entire town would be mitigated by one project. So like that entire tax increase, one project comes in, the right type of project, that completely goes away for the entire town. So these are, yes, they're one-off individual projects. You put them together, you've got this vibrant, completely different town 5 years from now.
I think what's good about the charrette idea, and I've looked at the last one multiple times over the years, is identifying the problems and then looking at things to fix. It's not just a list of like, oh, we want this park. It's, oh, our tax base is too low. Oh, we need more housing. Oh, we need better roads, whatever. And so it's a good initial thing to tackle all those issues, including like, we have these $30 million projects that we can't fund. Well, here's some opportunities where we could increase town revenue or tax revenue. So I think that's what's good about this.
Well, I just think Ashland has so many things about it that other communities don't have that's in their favor, which includes access to 93, to how many billionaires drive through town to get to their places on Big Squam. We're at the base of the mountains, we've got a college, and we have Laconia, school, we have all of this stuff here.
We have Little Squam.
We have Little Squam. So we have so many resources that Campton doesn't have, or this, we have them here. And, if we build it, will they come? Well, if we build it, if we start having a plan, and everybody who knows me, I'm always saying, you need a plan, but you have a plan, and then people start picking off pieces, and it can slowly happen. And I think we can do it, and I think because, you're a housing person, and other people don't know yet, but we've got this housing project going on, and sometimes when you're just doing housing, you're raising the taxes for everybody else, and we are the poorest town in the county of Grafton.
In the state.
number of people, we're second in the state, for the number of people living below the poverty rate.
The second poorest.
Second, for the number of people.
We
in
try
town
harder.
Living before, and so we don't want to increase the taxes of the senior citizens living in this $200,000 100-year-old house. We don't want to do that because that's too painful. But we've got so many resources that are location that other places just will never have. And so let's look at the good things we have. We're going to keep the good things and look at what we can do. And now, you talk about it's like, no, we can't. But if we could get this laid out and work with somebody and get one win to start a momentum, it doesn't have to be a big win, but getting a win on something and then kind of moving it to go.
Yeah, that's how it starts.
I think grant writing is more attractive when you have a plan written.
Yes. And
there are a lot of grants out there that we haven't tried to access. So, you know, we can't just put our hands up and say, we have been poor, and we will be poor forever. No, we're not going to be.
And I don't like
We're
calling
gonna
it,
say, no, we're not going to be, and we're gonna be thriving.
what I tell
because
people,
we're
that
gonna work together.
I don't wanna hear this, we're the poorest, whatever, unless we're writing a grant, because that helps you with your money, if you're the poorest community. But after that, that's not the thing I want to advertise that makes us unique.
We might
don't
be
wanna
the
do
poorest
that.
now, but we don't have to be down the line, so.
You know, we don't do a great job of advertising ourselves and our success. We need to do a much better job of that.
Yes,
You know, we have, in that Charette, it said we had 3, we now have 5 museums. We have the lake, we have Whitten Woods walking trails. We have so many great things, but we don't tell anybody. The river, the beach access.
Whitten Woods is another one. That's I see trucks pour in and bicycles are coming out of the trucks.
Yeah.
Where those bikes can leave Whitten Woods if we had a bike trail and go downtown and have lunch at the Common Man and bring business to town.
And they'll have so much good exercise going back up that hill.
oh,
You can actually come down the other
We're not gonna
way.
fix that one, because too much downhill now.
Yeah.
To your point, this, it appears to me that this whole plan is to get the people in the town to feel excited and to get excited and to want to participate. And in order to do that, you have to have a plan. You have to have something that people can look at tangibly, read, see, understand, so that they can say, oh, wow, that's a huge scope, but if I can handle this aspect of it, or I can handle this aspect of it, oh, this person's really good with this particular phase. To Alan's point, I understand what he's saying, if you're spending $30 million project, how much revenue does that actually bring to the town? Well, it's bringing a lot more revenue if it's infrastructure and buildings that have been restored, redone, rebuilt, and parking and different facilities that's bringing money into the town rather than the town not getting any money for it. It's a burden to the town now that these properties are vacant and that they're not producing anything. So it's costing money. So whatever impact that any positive development, redevelopment would have for the town is a plus. And it doesn't need to equate to the same amount of money, especially once you are able to develop a plan that you can bring to the state, to the federal government, to HUD, to whomever, to say, we need money for this, you know, we need regentrification, whatever you want to call it. You're not going to get anything if you don't get people on board to come up with a master plan and to follow through with it and not just leave it on a shelf.
So I think this morning's been really a good discussion. We brought up a lot of issues, and so my question is, going forward, what's the next step and what are the action items assigned to various individuals so that we can continue this and go in a positive, action-oriented
Yeah, so
direction?
next step would be putting together the application, applying to the town, applying to Plan New Hampshire for the Charette. And then we'll figure out the actual dates for that, you know, in 3 months, 6 months, whatever the time frame is for that. And then getting people, we'll have a schedule for the actual events themselves, and then you guys assembling those people that are coming to that. Also, I think the town's gonna be reaching out, and I don't know if there's an application fee, you know, how is that gonna be funded? A lot of times there's local businesses that would donate to cover those costs.
how much of application?
It's $6,500 is the overall fee, and then
Is that to pay
there's,
for like you and, you know, people who come in, or how does?
it's more on the administrative costs. Everybody who's coming to this event it's all donation. Everybody's volunteer. So the engineers, the architects, the planners, everybody's volunteering their time. That's just to cover the actual administrative costs of this. And then typically there'll be a local business owner that would provide lunch for the group, et cetera. So all those parts and pieces are the next things to kind of figure out is putting together the application and then figuring out the actual schedule of events and getting you guys to kind of help with putting this together. So you guys are going to be involved with the actual planning of it and having that come together.
So Ken, so is that something that the planning board or the economic development committee is taking the lead on from the town, or?
The planning board will take the lead on it, and then we will reach out to friends.
Thank you.
So it's kind of next steps.
So I just wanted to throw it there what the other guy was talking about. With the solar stuff, maybe that should be something we look into, because I'm sure there's grants, and if we have the property to do it, and especially with what happened with our substation recently, like if we do our own solar power, maybe we don't have to spend as much money with the upgrades on that. I don't know how all that works, but just throwing it out there. I liked his idea, and that, you know, if we have the land to do it, maybe we should.
Yeah.
Just throwing that.
I have a question. When Plan New Hampshire assembles its group of volunteers, you know, do they, the volunteer experts, do they do it by, for example, like there's been talk about energy and there's an energy issue, so would there be like a energy engineer, you know, that's kind of knocked on the door to see?
Yeah, I mean, this part of it too is kind of getting to know what that team would need to be in terms of assembling that. So it would be, they try to keep it pretty well rounded in terms of who's, because there's a decent amount of volunteers that are looking to be part of this. So we'll have a couple of architects, a couple of civil engineers, a couple of developers, the legal side of things, financiers, engineers with different backgrounds and expertise would all come together for this. These are all people from New Hampshire that just want, the reason why they're volunteering is they want a vibrant New Hampshire. They want New Hampshire to both keep its character, but also be viable for us to live in and enjoy it. So they're all members of our community. They're going to be coming here and volunteering for 3 days and helping your community. So those are the next steps. So I mean, we would work together, getting that application underway, and then kind of going back out to this group. I'm sure you've got emails and everything from this to kind of come back to you guys and say, these are the dates. Can we get, you know, a list of people involved? This is the schedule. We want this amount of people for these different events. And then the pre-planning would start to actually make it a productive time. Where are we going to go on for tours? How are we going to get around? Logistics, all that kind of stuff will be coming up after that. So, all right.
Yeah, I just had a thought relating. This has been so fascinating. Thank you. In terms of the timing, you said sort of walking tours and getting started and then 6 months. You know, you do have a window when the billionaires are driving to Holderness, and it's not October. It's June, July, and August. And I just wonder if thinking about the schedule, it makes sense to have a walking tour when they're here. Or, you know, when anybody would like to learn about the mill, the other parts of the town, you know, like don't wait until the frost.
Yeah, we don't want to do this in January. It's not going to be much
No,
fun.
like I think what you're saying, there are people here, there are a lot of people who are part-timers in town, who eventually we become full-timers, and,
We want them to be part of that. That'll be part of the scheduling for this. I don't know how far out we're booking right now for that. Just to volunteer with the program itself, but we would go to the administrator.
Well, it might be something that Kendall can facilitate, you know, the planning board can facilitate anyway. It doesn't necessarily have to be official. It'd be great, but you just got me thinking, there's a lot of people moving through this town in the summertime. And an opportunity to take a right or a left off of the main street for a morning and a cup of coffee could be helpful.
we'd like to siphon off some of that money.
Well, I know, I mean, we're right downtown Holderness, so they're coming through our town right over to here, so, yeah. But, okay, so yeah, that's, next up, we'll keep working on this and looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.